Well, thanks for the opportunity, Ed. Appreciate that. Yeah, I get lots of requests for interviews just even before John passed, and yes, still miss him terribly. But so I've not done any interviews. I do very few. One, because I get so many of them, sometimes 5 a week, and it's just impractical. And I just really want to keep it. I reached out to you because you have that mutual friendship, that respect, and that love, and you've always been such a great supporter of us, of Blue Murder and John, and just really, pulling for him as well. We both know of just how great he was, and still is. I mean, what he did, and aside from the obvious stuff, there was so much other stuff as well, or his solo albums that were primarily released in Japan, and we both had that very close connection. So here I am, thankful for that opportunity, and I really haven't shared it with anybody else. So, by the way, I do want to say that the second Blue Murder album, Nothing But Trouble, Carmine and myself played on most of that album, even though it wasn't credited that way. So it is a true Blue Murder album. I think there was 7 of the 11 tracks was both Carmine and myself. So
and I love that record, Tony. I knew you guys did some stuff. I didn't know it was that much, and obviously you're not pictured on it or credited, as you said, but I think that record is super underrated. There's amazing stuff on that record. Cry for Love and all that is right there with that first record.
Cry for Love goes back to the very beginning of the band. In fact, I think we had versions of Cozy Powell playing on that even before Carmine came on board. I don't know how many people knew that Cozy was the original drummer. And so, yeah, that one is definitely a classic. And, it's a different album, and that first album was just, everything just hit right. And it was different. We were changing. We were evolving. And but it's a great album. Absolutely, yeah. So where to start with John Sykes? Wow. Well, okay, let me talk about the last time I saw him.
Yes.
And it was 4 months before he passed. It was August of 2024. And I happened to be in the area. Funnily enough, I was picking up my old JD bass. The JD bass is the bass that I used on all the Blue Murder stuff. I used it on all the later Firm stuff, touring especially. Has a very distinctive look. You can see it in the Valley of the Kings video. And so I called him and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area tomorrow. Are you around? Would love to meet up and catch up. He said, oh, gosh, Tone, I have something. And then he said, you know what, I'm going to switch it around. We need to catch up. And so we did. I had that bass with me because I just picked it up from my guitar tech guy. And we didn't even look at it because John likes what I do on the P bass. He's so traditional and old school in that way. But I had it with me, and the significance of that is that I had that on the first time we met as well. And so that's I find it kind of symbolic. It was the first time we met and the last time we met. And John was great. He looked amazing. You'd think and nobody knew he only had 4 months left at that point. And he confided in me what was going on. He had this condition, and it wasn't looking good. But honestly, he looked so well. He looked so his eyes, his skin, his face, his whole demeanor. He wasn't skinny. He was like his normal self. He was eating well, and it's like. And he told me what was going on, and he said, just keep it in confidence to yourself, which I did. Nobody else knew. Very few people knew. And so it was just as much a shock to me when I heard the news because I truly thought that he was going to beat this. He is one of the strongest people I knew, mentally, his mind, his willpower, and physically too. He was very, very athletic and just a warrior. And I was convinced he was going to beat it. And when he heard about the diagnosis, he fasted for 21 days just on water. And, it takes some willpower, but that's John for you.
Why, Tony? Why, Tony? Why did he do that? Did he do that because he was told that would help his condition?
Possibly. To me, I know from my own studies that fasting is one of the quickest ways to rid the body of toxins. And it did apparently shrink the tumor, and it was effective. And I say his skin and his eyes were just so clear, and I just thought, he's going to beat this. I left the meeting feeling like, in no doubt in my mind, that he was going to beat this. Because if anybody could, it would be John Sykes. And so, and we had a great conversation, like we always do. You know about those conversations, Ed, right? Just talking about music, life, spirituality, everything. Just wonderful conversations. I mean, you must have had some great conversations.
Oh, gosh. I'll tell you, I mean, beyond being a fan of his extraordinary playing and singing, by the way, because I think I used to always pound on him about singing because he always was kind of reluctant about it. And I'm like, John, your voice is incredible. But he, I mean, I as much as a fan of the music, having been a friend, I miss the conversations. We would have these, he would run all sorts of things by me because, as you know, Tony, he was a guy that was very untrusting of a lot of people. He was very skeptical of a lot of people, and he was very guarded, and he had felt like he had been, whether it's going back to the situation with Coverdale on the 87 record. I mean, he just had his guard up, and he let very few people in. So I would love those conversations. I would love to help him, and I loved helping him and just trying to encourage him. He had said to me more times than once, he had said to me, "Oh, bloody hell, Ed, you should just fucking manage me, man, because I can't find a good manager." I'm like, no. I'm not getting involved in that world. I was like, but you need to be out there. You need to do stuff. And, Tony, I did not know that he was sick, and I was completely shocked when I heard he died. And in the last year, it had been like from the time he died for maybe about a year and a half, I could not reach him. And I could not get a return call or a text or email. And I was concerned, and I was asking people, is he okay? And they were all like, yeah, he's just laying low right now. But I had no idea he was sick. And then I started saying, man, maybe he got mad at me because I kept pounding on him too much to get out there and play. But then, of course, I found out after the fact through a close friend of his that for the most part, when he got this diagnosis, he just really went into a shell and didn't want to talk about it and didn't want to deal and just kind of put the walls up.
Yeah, and you know yourself, and you hear it from various people, just how he says himself, he can just disappear and pretty much go underground, and he's quite happy to do that. And, there'd be times I wouldn't hear back from him, and he'd be just gone for a few months or longer. But we maintained contact, we did, and just those wonderful conversations. And he didn't open up to me about his diagnosis immediately. We'd been there. We probably spent 3 hours together just talking and just being together, and it was amazing. But he opened up, and I could tell he was once again, as you said, that trust. He's big on that. He has to have that trust, and we've had our ups and downs over the years. I mean, we definitely have, but we once that was done. I'm talking about the days after Blue Murder, and it was nobody had cell phones or very few cell phones. There wasn't really email, and John's not a big email texter and all that stuff anyway.
Right.
But he could easily disappear, but we were jamming for quite a while between, I want to say, 2016 and 2019. We had a few drummers come in, and the most of the time we did it with this guy called Fred Boswell Jr. And, people have asked why. Okay, let's ask the question that everybody wants to know. Why didn't we do Blue Murder? And so, what it was, and we jammed a few times with Carmine, and it was amazing, just like it was on day one. And there was talk about it, but truly in John's heart, and you know this yourself, he had so much more to offer with the Thin Lizzy stuff, White Snake, Tiger the Pantang even, and then his new material, which was phenomenal. He didn't want to limit it to just Blue Murder. And you know, if you have the three of us, we can't do anything but Blue Murder, can we? It has to be that way. And there was hesitation at one point. John addressed it, and there was hesitation from both Carmine and myself to want to call it something else, and for it to be all a lot of different material. And I came to see in time that, yeah, of course, he has so much that he needs to be heard doing. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the footage of John with Whitesnake and Crying in the Rain and just those phenomenal solos and everything he did. That never got heard. And so, you know, Fred was a great drummer, and we played a lot of the Blue Murder stuff. But we also played a lot of Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, and all of it, just all at John's house. I would always get there a couple of hours earlier because we just talked and talked and talked. And I think we both kind of feel the same way. It's like those are the things that we miss the most, the conversations, that just opening up and sharing. And for me, it was like that from day one with John. I met him. It was actually Cozy Powell that called me and told me about the situation with John and explained a bit. And I have to be honest, I had not heard of John Sykes before that fight. And so Cozy called me and said, hey, working with this guy, John Sykes, and I was with him in Whitesnake, and would you be interested in coming and saying hello and all that? And John had met me or he got the contact for me from my cousin's husband, who was managing the band. And I hope I'm not getting too far off the track here, but John Sykes was talking to my cousin's husband. He was telling me about the new thing he's putting together with Cozy, and we're looking for a bass player. And I'd love somebody who plays like Tony Franklin. And he said, oh, that's my wife's cousin. He said, you're kidding me. I said, yeah, so can I get his number? And he was still thought he was joking. And then Cozy called, and there was me on the end of the line. It's like, wow, it really was. So I went up and met with John, and just always right from the get-go, it was just an instant connection, both friendship-wise and musically, too. And it's very rare you find that. I mean, I've been in lots of musical situations, lots of bands, but rare is it that you find a true chemistry on all levels. And that's what happened. It was John that I met first, and Cozy wasn't there on that occasion. We met in his mum's house in the kitchen. He was just sitting, just so chill and just chatting about everything, like we always did. I love the music that we created together and the shows and everything, and so much fun along the way. But the conversations and that time, special time together, is what I miss the most. So, but there you go. Yeah. There's a lot of info there, right, Ed?
Yeah, no, but it's all good stuff, and I can totally relate to what you're saying because I feel the same way. I'm as big a fan as there could be, but and he could be funny. For people that didn't know John, he could be very funny, and when he loosened up a little bit, he'd have some great stories, and he'd just have that sly sort of delivery and that half a smile when he'd say something, he'd just start cracking up. And I mean, he was the best. I mean, he was one of my favorite musicians, but he was just really a unique person too. And when you really got him going, it was really a lot of fun. Tony, how come Cozy didn't stay in Blue Murder? How come Carmine came in when they started it with you and Cozy?
Yeah. Well, we were rehearsing one day. We'd been doing a lot of playing in the studio, the recording studio. John's stepdad had a studio attached to his house. And so we were doing it, and it was kind of getting a little stale. It's on the headphones and all that. So I said, let's take it to a real room and let's just blast and play. We did, and it was so fun. And but one day there was a disagreement. Something was going on between Cozy and John's stepdad, who was helping to manage the band, just put things together and all that. And there was some kind of disagreement. And next thing we know, Cozy walked out, no explanation, and he never came back. I'm like, what was that? And but it's interesting because, and Cozy, come on, we're talking about a rock legend, amazing player, and just but however, it never to me perfectly suited the music. There was a different groove going on with Blue Murder, and if you listen to Carmine's playing and what he brought to the album, and I'm sure you know, and I don't know if everybody knows who's listening, that there are some demos on YouTube of Cozy with us, and there's actually one with Ray Gillen too. And none of those made it to the album. Actually, no, a couple did, and that was the early version of Riot and Ptolemy. And so those were originally with Cozy. A whole different feel. It's still amazing, and Cozy's got that heavy pocket, that heavy rock thing. But Carmine, if you listen to his playing, it has very much what I call a swing to it. Mm-hmm. It's more like the old big bands, Gene Krupa and all the people that he grew up listening to, and he brings that feel to it. And so, as soon as, and we tried other drummers too. There were some local players, and Ainsley Dunbar came in for a while, who just recorded the '87 album with John. Great player, and that wasn't quite right, and. But, I've done other things with Ainsley since then, and it was great. He's an amazing player. So it's that musical chemistry. And it's like the Beatles said that it wasn't the Beatles until Ringo came on board. Right. And so, it's the same kind of thing. When Carmine sat in and played, it was just instant. It sounded like we always sounded right from the beginning. Magical. I mean, I get chills just even thinking about it, and how those things are. A musical chemistry can be so elusive, but when it happens, it's powerful and it's magical.
Yeah, when you look back on that time and recording that first Blue Murder record and where John was at, we know that he was heavily stung about the dismissal from Whitesnake after co-writing and playing the guitars so brilliantly on that huge breakthrough record. And, I know that sat with him understandably for forever, really. But going into making this first record after that first Blue Murder album, here it is, actually same label as a Whitesnake as well. And here it is a year or two removed from that situation. What was the vibe from him like? Was he like a driven guy that I'm going to blow this next Whitesnake record out of the water? I mean, was he, because he could, was he driven like that? What did you sense that? Was there discussion about that I've got to, we've got to top anything that Coverdale's doing? Because I'm sure there was a lot of bitterness in him at that time.
Honestly, there wasn't, because he was so immersed in what we were doing. Whether there was, no, I mean, we were the closest ones to him at that point. I remember we were sitting in John's kitchen, and I guess it would be at 1987, and Still of the Night came on the radio. And he listened to it intently. Of course, he'd not even heard the finished thing until then. And, yeah, he was irritated by that and said a few choice words. But, no, there was no, verbalization of I'm going to show him. He just kind of, by his actions, he poured himself so much into it and worked really hard. And, it took him a while to embrace the fact that he needed to do the vocals. It probably would have been done a lot sooner, and we tried out a lot of people when we were in Vancouver recording. Of course, Ray Dillon was part of it for a little while, and Tony Martin too. He was part of it, and as great as they were, once again, it's that musical chemistry. It was different. It didn't quite. It just wasn't the same. It didn't have the right thing, and then John would sing something to demonstrate it for them, and it's like, oh, that's how it's supposed to sound. And finally, after just like finding no one who could do it right, he just surrendered and embraced it and did a great job. And then, because always, for him, it wasn't about the hesitation of singing, because he's a great vocalist, is still amazing, but it kind of took some of the joy away from his guitar playing.
Right.
When you're the lead vocalist. You have to work so hard. I mean, songs like Billy and Blue Murder, I mean, really intricate guitar parts, not even necessarily note intricate, but timing-wise. And you're playing that and then singing at the same time. It's like you have to use two parts of your brain almost and separate them. And so he worked so hard at that before we toured to like get the muscle memory and everything. And then was finally, when it clicked, it's like it was almost effortless for him. And he was so consistent and great every single night. But yeah, that was the real reason for the hesitation. Not because he didn't think he could do it, but it's just like, God, this will be really hard and will take some of the joy of the playing away.
Yeah,
but
and
he
I used to
embraced it and killed it.
Yeah, he did. And I used to, if people saw when he was on my old TV show, on That Metal Show, when he was going to do, at the time, going to do a band with Portnoy and Sheehan, he says, there's a clip of it online, you can see it, and he looks at me and he says, well, I guess I'm going to sing, Eddie, because you always tell me you love my voice, so I'm doing it for you. And we laughed, but he said that because we would always have these conversations, and he would talk about not wanting to sing. And I'm like, John, your voice is great. I love your voice. But it reached a point, because there was this frustration from me and so many fans, because they wanted him to put stuff out. They wanted him to be active and tour. I said to him many times, I'm like, John, if that's the concern, then I will sign, and most fans will sign tomorrow, for you to just be the guitar player. Maybe in the live set you sing one or two songs that you're comfortable with, but go get a singer. It's fine. As long as we can hear that Sykes playing and these songs and that guitar tone with a great band, I'll be fine with it. It's fine if you really don't want to do the singing. Because he was always having that kind of push-pull around his voice, like, oh, Jesus, that stuff on the Blue Murder album, it's up there so high. He goes, Eddie, I don't know if I said, John, it's fine. Go get a singer. Go get a keyboard player to help you out on vocals, whatever. I'm like, let's just do it. Just do something, you know? It was just, why do you think, Tony, along those lines? Because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of records that John put out that people don't know exist because they didn't come out in this country. They weren't properly marketed in this country. But in the last 10, 15 years of his life, there really is very little. Why do you think, like, he would always tell me he was very skeptical about the industry. He was very out of touch with how quickly the industry was changing, and the streaming and the way the record deals were and the amount of money in record deals. He was very, very skeptical of managers and people that were going to work with him and who he could trust. Do you think those were just the really the underlying factors as to why he really didn't do much in his final years?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've had similar conversations with him about getting a vocalist too and doing all that. And I think it's just, once again, it's hard to find somebody that does it justice. And John was, I guess he was a perfectionist, really, in that regard. But yeah, all those things played on him, and I mean, people don't realize how difficult touring is. It really is, and especially if you're singing and really have to take care of yourself and do all of that. It kind of takes it kind of takes some of the joy. Once again, I mean, we play music, and I still play music, even though it's what I do. It's what I do for my living. It's what I do for all of that. But it's still something at the end of the day. I'll sit down and play my bass or whatever instrument just because I love it so much. And John did play a lot. In those later years, we got together and we would just jam and stretch out, and he still loved it, but it was hard for him with the industry, and maybe it was his own insecurities about not being in touch. So all the things that you mentioned, and just undermined his confidence in the whole process. I mean, to really commit to that, you got to really feel it and own it, and I think it was just too much, and he wanted it to be simpler. He just wanted to play, but it was a different world. It is a different world, and it's changing faster than ever, and touring is tough. It really is. So I don't know. We'll never know all the true answers to all these things, but I think we can get an idea. But yeah, he put out a lot of music, and of course, hey, I guess we've got to talk about this latest release too, which you've heard. I didn't even hear the whole album. I did play on a few tracks on that, and I mean, you can tell me it's killer stuff, right?
Yeah. So the story. Well, one thing you touched on before we get to that, and I want to ask you a few other things unrelated to John, of course, but two quick things on John and this record. So first of all, you just said a word related to John that really resonated with me, that I think people would be shocked to learn who are Sykes fans. Because here's a guy that played brilliantly, wrote brilliantly, sang brilliantly, looked great, but he did, I think people would be shocked about this. He did have an insecurity about him. One of the things that I would always pound into him that he never understood is how impactful he was. How many people loved him. Like I would say to him, John, this guy, you influenced this guy. And when I told this guy I was talking to you, he couldn't believe it because he said, what an influence. And he would always go, oh, Eddie, oh, no, yeah. Oh, that's very nice, but very brushed it off. So you would think a guy that was the total package like he was would have this real confidence and, but I would constantly have to reinforce to him how many people wanted to hear him play again. And he never believed it. And it was just so frustrating because I'm like, no, John, I'm telling you. But to your point about that record, and we'll wrap up talking about John in this way. So this record was made a while ago. And what a lot of people, I think, have learned over the years is that a number of years ago, John was going to do a band that was going to be with Mike Portnoy, and at the time, Billy Sheehan was proposed to be the bass player, and it was going to be a new trio. John was going to call the band Bad Apple, and but things weren't clicking the way he wanted it to click, and I knew that the thing was doomed because Portnoy, I love him to death, but he is like in the fast lane all the time and wants to go. And John was way more measured, way more guarded. I don't know if John was totally, convinced that Billy was the right guy for the project. There was some hesitation there. And I got called out to his house because I was in LA at the time, and I got called out. Derek Shulman was going to manage the band. Derek called me. He says, you got to come out here. John respects you. All three of the guys were there. Mike and Billy were there. I got a photo with them. And they said, see if you can help hold this together and talk to everyone. So I did. I was with Don Jameson. We were in town because we were doing our TV show at the time. But Don is a fan. He came along for the ride, and we had a great afternoon out there and trying to pull it together. But it just wasn't. It just didn't last. It was dead about a week after that. But that material that John wrote, all that material. And of course, what happened there was John was out. Mike and Billy wanted to still do a band. So I suggested Richie Kotzen, and the Winery Dogs were born, and that's what that music is. But what a lot of people don't realize is that music and that band, what became the Winery Dogs, is completely different. All the material is completely different. Richie brought all that in, or a lot of it in, with those guys. And none of that music is the same as what Billy and Mike were working on with John. So John, who had written all those songs himself, kept that material, which was within his rights because he had written it. And he decided to go in and make a record. I guess you said you were on some tracks, this other drummer, whoever he made it with, and that's what was going to become the record. So it was the same material, but that it would have been, he would have brought to Mike and Billy, but he pulled it back and used it for his own record. And then John called me and told me he'd completed this record. And I'll never forget this, Tony. He said to me, meet me. We went for Mexican food at Casa Vega in the Valley.
Yeah.
And he said, meet me at the restaurant. We had a nice dinner. And then afterwards he goes, okay, I want to play you the record. And we go out in the parking lot of Casa Vega, and he didn't have his CD player was not working or something in his car. So he put a CD Walkman on the dash. Again, this is only like 5 years ago, and he plays it on the CD Walkman. So I sat and listened to it, and I realized that it was a lot of the same material, but obviously done with different people. And I thought it was great. And I gave him a few comments about what I would do here, what I would do with it or whatever. And that was it. And then it sat and it sat and it sat. And then I heard he took this deal with this Australian label, Golden Robot. The owner of that label called me several times because he knew I was a big fan and supporter. He wanted my involvement. I said, whatever I can help with. And then it was at the NAMM show, whenever it was, like 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm standing there.
2018, that was.
Yeah. And John went because he wanted to see Lee Kerslake because Lee was getting a medal award and he wanted to be there for Lee. And that was just before Lee died. And John made the rounds at NAMM, and I talked to him for a while, and he said to me, because you also know, Tony, that John really didn't have much of a filter when he wanted to say something. And he said to me, with the owner of the label standing 10 feet away, I said, John, he goes, yeah, that's the guy from the label. He goes, but Eddie, I don't think I'm going to give him the record. And I remember just being like, what? He goes, yeah, I worked hard on it. I don't think it's the right thing, and I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to do something else with the record. I was like, well, John, I just found it odd because the guy was standing right there, and he basically said to his face, you're not getting the record. And they had already announced the record and what have you, and I was like, I said, well, John, let me know, if I can help or what you decide to do, and then that was it, and the record just sat and sat and sat. And then I know he dropped a couple singles on YouTube. And I had said to, when he put those out, I emailed him. I said, John, send me a WAV file. I can't play stuff from YouTube. I'll play this. I'll push it out for you. Nah, I'm just going to put it on YouTube. I think he said his son put him up or something. I was like, dude, you can't, radio can't play from YouTube. You just got to service it in some way. Yeah, no, I just wanted to put it out, whatever, a couple songs. And then that was it. And then, of course, I truly hope the record came out. And then coming full circle, yesterday or a day or two ago, we get news from Golden Robot that they're putting out an EP. And then I don't know if you saw today, the family, John's estate, his family put out a statement that they don't want this to come out. And they didn't have a deal with Golden Robot. And they're not happy because they feel like they're doing something now that he's dead that he didn't want to happen. So what can you update us on all this?
I pretty much have all the same kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I want to be careful what I say here, but I don't think that the label has you mentioned it that John wasn't going to give it to them. I'm pretty sure that he didn't, and I don't want to step in anything there because if they do, then that's different. But according to the family release, that was through the label. I respect to the label because they put it on their website or wherever it was, and this is from 2 days ago, the 18th, that they are unfinished songs.
So they probably have demos. They probably have the demos that he was sending before the falling out. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's part of the quote that is from the family that was put out by the label. And so, where is it? I have it right in front of me because I wanted to reference it. So, the unfinished material to be, yes, entered, yes, for his unfinished material to be released. So they're not happy about it. There were no discussions. And so that's from the family, and that was posted on the label site. So that's as much as I know. It sounds like it's the demos. It's not the actual masters by the sound of it. And once again, I'm treading carefully here because I don't want to assume one thing or another. I'm just going on what's been publicly put out there, and it says in that John Sykes parted ways with the label in 2019, and so it does seem, I'm pretty sure that John would not want this to happen. I mean, if he's not giving you WAV files to play on your outlets, he would not want demos going out there.
Right. There are completed songs that he did want to go out there on YouTube. People can hear them. He did put, those did come from him. He told me, I think he said his son posted them to YouTube. He wanted people to hear that. That's the finished product. But what you're saying is making a lot of sense because it does say unfinished, and that would also support why, because when I saw the label was going to finally put this out, I was excited because I figured maybe the family signed off and we'd get the actual record, but it's sounding like, but I couldn't understand why it was an EP because I know there's 9-10 songs, but that would support why it's the EP. If they only got X amount of demos, that's why they probably couldn't put a full record out because they don't have it.
Sounds like it. And once again, I mean, John told me a lot of stuff, but he would not tell me everything because he said, I don't want you to know, Tone, because he didn't want me to be in a position where I was in the middle of anything. John, one of the things that about John and me, he was always from day one incredibly protective of me. I mean, physically and emotionally, he would always be watching out for me. And so even with that statement, he was like, no, I'm not going to go into details because I don't want you to be in that kind of position because I don't know how it all ended up or how it was resolved. It's not my business. That was between John and the label. And so he didn't tell me, but that's where I think we're up to.
Yeah, and I'm in the same position. I know at that time when I was shocked because I got to know the owner of the label. His name is Mark, and he was a nice guy, and we spoke a few times back then. He was the first person, John was the first person he signed to that label when he started it. And, I wanted it to come out. I was all in for whatever they needed, and then when it came down off the website that John wasn't going to give him the record, and they parted. So honestly, as of a day or two ago, I figured that, okay, maybe there was some reconciliation for the record and the estate said, we just need to get this out. Because at the end of the day, I don't have anything to do with the label or John's material in any legal or any business way. I'm just a fan, but that just wants it to come out in some way, but come out the way John would have wanted it to come out, of course. And we just don't know what's really going on, but it definitely seems like there's some sort of disconnect here.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I'm all for if demos want to come out. I mean, there are demos of Blue Murder out there. Then maybe YouTube is the way to go for that. But anyway, I'm already venturing opinions that I don't necessarily want to. But by the way, I want to back up a little bit when I mentioned about the possibility of John insecure. Most musicians are that way.
Yeah.
Is that they have underneath it. Because if you think about it, we're making ourselves completely vulnerable. We're putting our art, something we've put years, hours, whatever into, to put bearing ourselves. When you put out an album, when you get up on the stage, I mean, even after all these years of doing it, it's like there are moments where I'm like, wow, can I do this? It's like there are new situations that you have to deal with, and you deal with it. Of course you do. But many, many musicians have those insecurities. I've seen it firsthand. And I mean, Jimi Hendrix was allegedly insecure about singing because he didn't think he had a good voice. So, I mean, if that's the case, then John was in good company with that. You know, it is something that you make yourself so. It's like being naked in front of a bunch of people with your music. It's so meaningful and so personal to you. It's like you want it to do well, but it doesn't always do well, and it's tough. You have to really be really strong and tough, and not be afraid of that. But hey, it doesn't happen overnight. So I just wanted to clarify that. John, in himself, I mean, doing those shows and seeing him in everyday life, he was the strongest and most confident person and musician I've ever encountered. One of the most competent and strong I've ever encountered. There's been a few, but you know, nobody's totally invincible, are they? We all have the chinks in the armor. And so, but anyway, just want to say that. And also, it's humor, too. You mentioned that briefly. So he and I, both being from Britain and growing up around the same time, we had references of humor that go back, way, way back, that our parents would say, and songs that we would hear. And so he'd have all these sayings, and they'd be hilarious. You probably heard a few of them yourself, where he would say something that's just so funny. I mean, God, yeah. Love all that side of it, not often seen.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's why I was always pushing him to get more out there, just do more stuff, let people connect with him more, let people get to know him more, and of course let people get to hopefully hear him more. And look, I don't know what's going to happen with this material, but I hope the actual record comes out and they could find a way to put it out the way everybody wants it to come out, because it should come out, and it was really good stuff. And of course it's his final recordings, but that'll be, you know, obviously up to the family and the estate as to what they decide. Tony, two quick things, and then I've got to let you go. I wanted to find out from you, above and beyond all this, and I appreciate you sharing, and I know the audience does as well. What are you up to these days as far as playing? I know last time I was speaking to you, you were doing some shows with Lou Gramm. Tell me, I just saw you in the new Joel Hoekstra video. Tell the audience for some of the stuff you have going on right now.
Oh, a lot of stuff, yeah. Lou Gramm, I've been playing shows with him for the last 4 years, and he's kind of winding down, but he's doing some shows with Foreigner, but we still have shows booked this year, and he has a new album coming out, and I played on some of that. Next thing we have coming up is the Rock and Romance Cruise out of Fort Lauderdale on March 21st. And so great with him. Immediately, I'm playing this Friday at the House of Blues in Anaheim with a whole bunch of guys, actually. It's what they call Behind the Hits, Legends of the Studio. It's NAMM this week, of course, and it's related to that. And so playing a lot of different stuff. I mean, I'll be playing some Steely Dan and Supertramp and Running Up That Hill, which I did with Kate Bush and David Gilmour. If people haven't seen that, look for that video. It's from 1987. And anyway, so doing a bunch of things that I'm very, very excited about a new project I'm involved with called Al Nesbitt and the Alchemy. And people are like, what's that? And, you know, I've been playing with these guys close to a year. It's all instrumental. Al Nesbitt is this nylon string guitarist, acoustic, and Jonathan Sindelman on keys, Kurt Biscara on drums. You can find us on, there's a couple of videos on YouTube. It's youtube.com, Al Nesbitt Alchemy. Nesbitt is with 2 T's. And it's very adventurous stuff. I love where it's going. That chemistry that I mentioned I had with John and I had with the film too, we have with these guys. And it's just, we got together. I did a recording for Al, and then we ended up doing a gig, and we weren't going to take it any further. So I just did a gig, and there was such a magic happening with that, and we're recording right now, and it's very cinematic, very theatrical, a lot of visual kind of music. So we may be gearing this towards movie soundtracks and all that.
Focus.
So there's that going on. Very excited about that. I have rock and roll fancy camps coming up. We have one coming up in February, actually. I've probably done 24 camps as a rock star counselor.
Wow.
And this one coming up is February 19th, and 4 days in L.A. We play at the Whiskey A Go Go, and it's Stuart Copeland from the Police. They got Steve Stevens, Skunk Baxter, Leland Sklar, Anita Strauss are the headliners, and I'm like one of the counselors. And there's another one coming up. It's been rescheduled. I think it's going to be in April, but to be announced. And that's with Sir Roger Daltrey. And that one's the 30th anniversary of Rock Camp down in Miami. And then recording sessions. I'm constantly busy with that. I mean, all that stuff I did with Joel, I mean, that was all recorded from my home studio here, and then we did the videos together. I've played on all of Joel's albums. I think it's 4 or 5 now. And so I'm always busy. And, hey, folks, you can find me on the social media if I can plug this, Lou.
Sure.
Lou. Sorry, Ed. It's all Fretless Monster. FretlessMonster.com. Instagram is Fretless Monster. X, Twitter, Fretless Monster. YouTube, Fretless Monster. So it's very easy. And that's that. So keeping very active, very busy.
I can't let you. You know, and unfortunately we don't have time to dig too much into this. But you know, I don't. And I mentioned it when I brought you on. Of course, you know, in addition to Blue Murder, most people saw you play and heard you play for the first time with Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers, which is certainly an amazing thing to have on your resume as a member of the Firm. Are you in touch with Paul or Jimmy anymore?
A little bit with Paul, not so much with Jimmy. He just is doing his own thing, and I respect that. And a little bit in touch with Chris Slade, and all good vibes between us. You know, I always say that the Firm never ended. It just didn't continue. So it's we're still together as far as I'm concerned. But
and it's not too late.
What a moment.
It's not too late, everyone. Thank God everyone's still with us. I mean, Jimmy Page for years talked about trying to play with some people. I'm like, well, heck, what about all these great people you played with in the Firm? And there's plenty of people around. Let's go. You know, he still looks good. He looks like he could still do it, but he doesn't. He seems to be pretty much done in that way now.
I think so. And once again, you know, if you're going to really commit to that, it's a workout. It really is. And I get it. And he could do it if he wanted to. I mean, we could possibly do, you know, a handful of select shows or whatever. But, you know, Jimmy Page, it's not like he has anything to prove, does he?
No, so I think
he's all right.
His legacy is pretty secure, that's for sure. All right, I want to end on this, Tony. Going back to our friend Sykes, who we miss so much. Give me one. You got one funny story or one great memory, or your fondest memory, whether it was on stage, off stage, recording, personal, something that happened on the phone. You got one great story you want to share with us on John?
Well, to be honest, I have shared quite a few that were highlights. Just that the first time seeing him. Okay, here we go. I mean, there's so many. But so the very first song that I heard, and here's John sitting on the kitchen counter, so chill, so relaxed, and first time I met him, and first song he played me was Ptolemy. And I was like, wow, that's different from anything else I've ever heard. And he's playing, and it was recorded with one of those Tom Schultz Rockman things, right? It was very, very kind of basic sound, but it was all there. It sounded like him. And it was like, wow. I honestly, in the beginning, it was a lot to take in. Imagine not knowing anything or very much about John Sykes and then hearing Ptolemy, right? It's like one of those reaction videos. And you hear a song, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on. That's a lot to take in. But I sensed just the freshness, the originality, and of course, and it was John singing on that too. And it was early demo, and it still sounded like him. And there was something there that just like I have to be part of this. But always, it was the friendship, it was the chemistry, and there were times when the delays with the music and everything over the years. I'm talking about the early days when he wanted somebody else to sing it and all that. When we were tested, but always, and that was at the very beginning where that's what kept me there. That friendship and that chemistry between us, that personal level, and that to me is priceless. We keep coming back to that. The music was a bonus. It was fantastic. I'm so grateful and thankful we were able to do what we did. And there's a great show from Japan on YouTube. The sound is a little off balance and the camera's a little shaky, but we were on fire. You can see it. You can just feel it. And that was us in a nutshell. But all the time, it was the magic of our friendship and our chemistry together on that personal level throughout it all.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing so much. I'm glad we finally had a chance to do this. It's hard to believe, but that he's been gone already for over a year. But I think of him and I miss him all the time. And the music is out there for everybody to enjoy and still discover. And maybe, who knows, hopefully in the right way, through the right channels, we'll be getting some new music to enjoy sometime soon. Tony, all the best to you. Thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for the time. And the
all right, take care. Yep, we'll see you.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go, everybody. That is an hour with Tony Franklin. And, man, there's just amazing stuff there if you are or were or are a fan of the late, great John Sykes and Blue Murder, as I certainly was and been very open about for a long time how much I love that music and what that guy gave us, and just incredible stuff. And I didn't realize that Tony and Carmine were on as much of that second record as they were, because as he said, they were not credited. I don't know what went on there legally or whatever, but John changed, at least for the packaging on Nothing But Trouble, he changed the lineup, and they were different people pictured. But that, most people that know Blue Murder, and there's only 2 studio records, they immediately go to the first record as the monster classic record, and it is. But do not sleep on that second record. I don't even think the second record is on streaming. So one of those cases where I hope you got the CD, because it is a great record. And We All Fall Down, and as I mentioned, the song Cry for Love is monstrous. So I'm glad that we touched on that a little bit as well. But yeah, Tony's been wanting to have that conversation for literally like a year since we lost John, and I'm glad we finally had a chance to do so. Well, I was really glad Tony took that opportunity to come on and talk a little bit about what he's doing now, and of course, remembering the late, great John Sykes. Of course, there is a song now released from a label called Golden Robot called My Guitar that, we touched on there in that interview. That song is now out. So you can hear it if you'd like, and hear what John was working on at the time of his death. Thanks to Tony for joining us. Thanks to Ricky Rocket. Thanks to Phil X as well on this supersized special edition of the Eddie Trunk Podcast. In coming weeks, maybe as soon as next week, we're going to get you some brand new interviews that I did with Zach Wild and with Blackie Lawless, so get ready for that. And again, be sure to subscribe so you do not miss an episode of the podcast. Don't forget, there is video content of some of the interviews on my YouTube channel, simply at Eddie Trunk. And be sure to listen on SiriusXM every day for everything going on in the world of rock, and hearing full shows. You can do so every day live, 3 to 5 Eastern on Faction Talk Channel 103. live or on demand using the SiriusXM app. Thank you, guys. Have a great week. Hope you catch me on the radio. Follow on social media. And I'll be back here next Thursday with a new podcast for you with some more news-making interviews. Take care.